What's up, guys? Today I'm going to be putting the Panaracer Gravel King SS Plus tires on my 2023 Fairdale Weekender Nomad, and in the process I'm going to convert it over to Tubeless. So I figured I'd take this opportunity to make a little tutorial on how to convert your bike over to Tubeless. First things first, you're just going to make sure that your tires and rims are Tubeless ready. You can usually find that on the sidewall of the tire and on the rim itself. If you can't find it there, just check on the manufacturer's website or go into your local bike shop and they'll let you know if you're good to go. So watch this video if you want some tricks and tips on converting over to tubeless, or you just want to watch me tinker on my bike for a little while. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. So once you confirm that your rims and tires are tubeless ready, here's just about everything you're going to need to convert your bike over to tubeless. You're going to want some paper towels or a lint-free cloth and some isopropyl alcohol to prep the rim surface before applying your rim tape. In my case, I just use Gorilla Tape. You can buy some rim tape that's specific to tubeless conversions at your local bike shop though. You're also going to want your tubeless valves. I just use the Muck-Off 44mm tubeless valves. They work great for me. You're obviously going to want a way to take your wheel on and off. You're going to want a valve core remover. The Muck-Off tubeless valves actually come with a valve core remover in the package as well, which I find pretty handy. You're going to need some tire levers for removing the tire, some scissors for cutting the rim tape, some tire sealant, obviously. I just use the stands. It works great. There's all sorts of brands out there though that work the same. I also have this empty 2-ounce bottle of tire sealant I use to fill it through the valve. It just makes it easier and less messy. And I also have a little shop rag, clean up any mess I make. And then you're going to obviously want a pump to pump up the tire. This is just your standard floor pump. They work fine for tubeless. You just got to pump pretty vigorously. Otherwise, you can use an air compressor. I have one right here. So that's just about everything you're going to need. So let's get going on this. Yeah, I forgot to mention, you're also going to want a pokey tool of some sort, like this one Park Tool makes, or you can just sharpen a spoke, use something like that, just so you can poke a hole in the rim tape. You don't want it to be too big though, so don't want to go any bigger than this. Additionally, you're going to want some soapy water. I just use Dawn dish soap, throw it in a water bottle, and pour it on the tire just so it can lubricate the tire a little bit to seat on the rim. Let's go ahead and get the wheels off the bike. Let the air out of the tire so you can remove it. You want to go ahead and unseat the tire from the bead. That way it's easier to remove. You want to do it all the way around the tire. Then you'll want to start with the side opposite the valve with the tire lever to remove the tire. So you got one side off. Go to the side opposite the valve. And you should just be able to pull it off. If not, you can put a tire lever in there. Got it off. And we can say goodbye to these things. So now we're going to want to prep the rim before we apply the rim tape. And if you look inside, the factory did apply a rim strip in here, but this is not for tubeless. Even if the rims come tubeless ready, usually this is just a protective rim strip to stop your spokes from poking your tube. So you're going to want to make sure you remove this before prepping, and also you're not going to want to put the rim strip back on prior to taping. So yeah, we're going to use isopropyl alcohol and a paper towel or any sort of lint-free rag to clean this rim, and as you can see, there's a lot of oil and whatnot in there, so you want to make sure you get all of that off so the tape will get a good seal inside of that rim. This would be a little easier with a spray bottle, but I just have a bottle here, and I'll put some alcohol on the paper towel and just make sure I rub it real good all along the rim, getting all that excess oil off from the factory out of there. Any dirt or grime will come up. I'll go around a couple times, make sure I get it good. I'll change the paper towel to a fresh one just to make sure I get this rim nice and clean, ready for the tape. Once you wipe all the oil and whatnot off of the inside of your rim, it should be good to go. Just let it dry for a little while. I even like to use an air compressor to blow off any excess dust or anything that was left in there. The inside of the rim's all clean, and I really can't overstate how important it is to make sure that you get that surface nice and clean, because otherwise the tape won't adhere right, you won't get a good seal, and you're just going to end up making a mess and have to do it all over again. Well, now that your rim's clean, it's time to start taping the rim. And for me, like I said, I use Gorilla Tape, so I do have to size it down to the rim. You just want to make sure that when the tape sits in the rim, nice and tight, it's going to go from sidewall to sidewall on the inside of the rim. You don't want it to go up the sidewall or just through the middle of the rim. You want it to cover from sidewall to sidewall. So I got to size it just right, which makes the Gorilla Tape a bit of a pain in the ass at times, but it's what I got. So I tore the Gorilla Tape to the size that I'm going to need. I just eyeballed it and then put it in the rim to make sure it's going to fit. So now that we're good to start taping, as long as you got your tape to size, like I said, just go from sidewall to sidewall, and it's going to have to fit in the concave of the rim, so you'll have to account for that. So where you're going to want to start taping, I like to do it on the opposite end of the valve hole. Opposite of the valve hole, I'll go to the next spoke, and then in between the next spoke and the following spoke after that is when I'll begin to apply the tape. How you start is pretty important because you need it to be just perfect, sidewall to sidewall. You start pulling it and you pull it nice and tight and make sure you push it down in there into the concave of that rim, and just keep pushing and pulling it nice and tight as you go. I'd say do about 8 inches at a time, max, 6 to 8 inches, because you don't want any bubbles and you want to make sure the tape stays nice and even the whole time. Just remember to keep pressing it down, that way you eliminate any sort of air bubbles as you go. Like I said, about 6 to 8 inches at a time. Pull it real tight, stick it to the rim, push it down with your fingers, keep going, keep pulling. All right, so I have made it to the point where I began taping, but you're going to want to overlap, and you're going to overlap over the valve hole and end in between the following two spoke holes, and cut the tape. And yeah, it's important to make sure you do overlap that valve hole. Different tapes have different PSI thresholds, and if you're running high PSI tires, you might need to go around twice. I know with the Stans tape, I think if you run anything over 45 PSI, they suggest that you run 2 layers of the tape. I find that I have no problem running just 1 layer of Gorilla Tape as long as I overlap a couple inches on each side of that valve hole. And you'll want to inspect, make sure that it is still going from sidewall to sidewall along the whole rim. And I'll use a paper towel or any sort of rag to push down on that tape real firm to eliminate any leftover air bubbles or any gaps in there. So yeah, it looks good, nice and smooth, just how I want it. And now I'll go ahead and poke the hole in the tape. So you'll want a poker. You want something small like this. If you have something like this, this will work the best, like a dental pick. But you don't want to put a big Phillips head screwdriver or something through there because it'll make a messy hole. You want to really make as small of a hole as you can in order to fit the valve stem through there. So I'll find that hole, and you want to be careful not to stab it in the wrong spot. So just be extra cautious. And then you just nice and gentle poke a hole through there, and there it goes. You can wiggle it around just a little bit, but you don't want to make the hole much bigger than it was from the poker itself. So yeah, little tiny hole, as you can see. So the Muck-Off tubeless valve stems do come with a couple different rubber bases to fit the inside of your rim to get a better seal. And you'll just want to fit them to your rim and see which size goes best in your rim, if these are the kind that you have or something similar. I think I'm just going to use the ones that come on it initially. Those seem to fit the best. So what I'm going to do now is put the valve stem into the rim through the hole that I put in my rim tape. You want to poke it through there nice and slow, nice and gentle. Don't want to mess things up. You already got this far. So there we go. Put it through there. It's nice and snug. You don't want to push it down too much. So the valve stem is in. And then you're going to want to tighten the valve stem down with the little nut that it comes with. So you want to get this thing on there nice and snug. Not too snug though, just finger tight. You don't want to keep jamming it down because then you'll push down that little rubber base and probably won't get as good of a seal. So got it in there. Looks good. So next we're going to put the tire on the rim. So the tires I got are the Panaracer Gravel King SS Plus tires. They're a little smoother than the ones that came on the Fairdale, so I'm pretty stoked to try them out. They're 650B by 48 millimeters, or what is it, 27.5 by 1.9. So I'm pretty stoked. These are tubeless, hookless, folding tires, so pretty lightweight. They got all sorts of fancy materials they're made out of. I'm not going to nerd out on that too much. I don't really care that much. They were just some really good tires that I figured I'd try with my Fairdale. So yeah, we're going to put the tire on the rim. You're going to want to make sure that you put it on, obviously, in the right direction of the rotation. With these tires, I'm pretty sure it doesn't matter. They go both ways, it seems like. There's no tread pattern that would make it matter of the direction of the rotation of the tire. But I'll just confirm that by looking at the sidewall, make sure there's no arrows for the rotation. And yeah, looks like we're good to go. So just like taking the tire off, I'm going to start on the opposite side of the valve and get just one side of the bead on the tire, or sorry, on the rim. And you'll just push it along. I like to avoid using tire levers at all costs at this point, because if you do use a tire lever, you're risking damaging the rim tape. And if you damage the rim tape, then you won't get a seal. So I would just muscle your tire on if you can. If not, and you do use tire levers, just be really careful. And preferably use plastic tire levers versus metal. Well, so I got one side on the rim, and now we can start on the next side. I'm gonna go look over at the valve though and make sure that I got the tire over the valve hole, which I didn't. So before I start on the next side, I'm gonna get this over just so it's not as hard once both are on. So push that over to the other side. So yeah, now I made sure that the tire is covering the valve hole so I don't have to worry about that later. So yeah, this is the point when some people would decide to use a tire lever. And if you're going to do that, just make sure you're extra careful. I'm just going to go ahead and muscle it on. But some people might want to use a tire lever. There we go. So now it is on. And as you can see, just make sure that, like I said earlier, that the tire itself is covering the valve stem. You don't want the valve stem exposed in the rim there. At this point, we can go ahead and add our sealant, or we can fill the tire up right now just to make sure that it's going to seat properly on the rim. So I'll go ahead and throw some air in it just for the heck of it. I'm pretty confident that I could just put the sealant in and the tire would seat in the bead properly. But let's throw some air in it and see how it goes. This is the point when you're going to want to put soapy water on the sidewalls and bead of your tire. This will help lubricate the bead to seat properly in the rim when you put pressure in the tire. Notice the popping sounds when I fill the tire with air. Those pops are the bead of the tire seating into the rim. Well, and this is right around the time that my mic died, so now that I know that the bead is set fine, what I'm going to do is just add the sealant. For this particular tire, I only need 2 ounces of sealant, so it works perfect in that little shot bottle that I have. So you can check online and see how much sealant is recommended for whatever size your tire is. After you add the sealant, go ahead and put the valve core back into the valve stem using your tool. And at that point, you can go ahead and pump it up. You can see here that I use the floor pump, and that worked just fine. I filled it all the way up to 60 psi, kept an eye on it, make sure I didn't see any leakage or bubbling or anything like that. And then you'll just definitely want to check along that bead, make sure it sits evenly the whole way around the rim. You don't want any high or low spots. Just make sure that tire is even around that whole outer diameter of the rim. Once you filled your tires up with air and check to make sure they're sitting on the rim right, you can go ahead and shake the wheels around and bounce them up and down and get that sealant dispersed throughout the tire. And then you can go ahead and throw them on your bike and go for a ride. The best way to disperse the sealant is really to ride the bike, so you're going to want to ride it ASAP. Thanks a lot for watching. If you liked what you saw, feel free to subscribe or not. Later. Woo! Alright guys, mission accomplished. My 2023 Fairdale Weekender Nomad is now running a tubeless setup on these sweet Panaracer Gravel King SS Plus tires, and I'm stoked on it. Hopefully this video helps you out a little bit in converting to tubeless. I know I learned a lot making it. This is only my second time converting a bike to tubeless, and I think I had a lot rougher go this time around. So some key takeaways would be just have everything lined out that you need in order to convert to tubeless, and the soapy water trick. I would recommend using soapy water in order to seat the tire right off the bat. I got away with it on my last tubeless setup without using any soapy water at all, so I thought the same thing would happen this time around. But the soapy water on the sidewalls really helps lubricate the bead to seat right in that rim. So yeah, just spray or dump a little bit of soapy water on that tire and it'll seat perfectly if you use a compressor or if you just rapidly pump it with a floor pump. So yeah, just take your time, don't stress out, don't give up, and you can be tubeless too. Now go ride your bike.